But I'll take you back to the point you were making about the challenges that you faced as you left university, particularly when it came to the Israel-Palestine issue.
Yeah, I still completed my bachelor's in journalism because I had to. I was like, I did not fight my parents for this for 2 years to not complete my bachelor's in journalism.
There you go.
There's no way I'm not completing it. But it was, for me, one of the main reasons why I left journalism was it was one, because I felt like it wasn't a space for me, but two, I also felt like I had no choice. It was during my second year of university. I was heavily involved in, I was not just involved in journalism. I was most involved outside of it. I was involved in student groups, charity organizations, the MSA. I was involved in the student union. It was very important for me to be in organizing positions. And during my time at TMU, I was working. I was the president of a program called the Orphan Sponsorship Program, which was it was an incredible program. The organizers the year before me were basically raising $90,000 a month for orphans all around the world, and it was one of the only initiatives that was spearheaded by the MSA, but it wasn't part of the MSA. It was the only organization that was really involving every single student group, ethnicity, race, religion on campus to ensure that we're reaching the goal. So it was an incredible organization, mashallah, and I was very humbled to be the president at that time to spearhead that. However, I think during that time, there was a lot of drama on campus about there was a clause to have a Holocaust Education Week by the Hillel and Jewish students on campus. It was essentially a Holocaust Education Week that had nothing to do with Israel or Palestine. At the time, it was just really a week that they wanted to educate people about what happened at the Holocaust, which is very important information for students to know. And if a community wants to highlight that sort of information, they should. And there were a couple of Muslim students who, I think, unfortunate to their own ignorance, they had spoken against it. And because they had spoken against it, it was ended up being also a bunch of just Muslim students across campus that were just being barred as being supporting this. So for me, I was at that meeting. I had left, and basically there was a planned walkout, or actually it wasn't a planned walkout for that. There's so much drama. There's so much drama revolving this. It wasn't a planned walkout for that. I think there was a planned walkout for someone to get impeached or something on the student union. I walked out at 9. The planned walkout was at 11 p.m. I had a curfew to go to, and I was hungry, so I left early. But people did believe that I also was part of the walkout since I was a Muslim, and there was basically Muslims who were also doing that. That was later on proved as well that did not, none of that was happening. Essentially, that was the drama that was on campus, and because of that, then there were students who essentially sent names for anybody who was pro-Palestinian, anybody who was on that MSA. It ended up becoming a very anti-Semitic and a Islamophobic issue, where they had taken a bunch of Muslim student leaders' names and they had submitted it to an organization called the Canary Mission. And the Canary Mission essentially is an organization, if you look it up, if anybody says anything like they're Free Palestine, I think even Zayn Malik is on there, but anybody who says Free Palestine, anybody who is on the MSA, they correlate them to a terrorist organization. They think the MSA is a terrorist organization. And they go into a deep dive into your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, anything that they can find that you have said anything remotely pro-Palestinian. They will go ahead and post it up and put it online, and then they'll go do their due diligence and send it to your employers. They'll send it to your school. They'll do all of this. It's a very smear campaign sort of organization, which has been barred by the Jewish community as well as not an accurate organization and not factual either, because it is very Islamophobic with their approach. So I ended up being on the Canary Mission. And people did end up going through my tweets from when I was 13 and 14 during the Gaza war that was taking place during that time. And again, I should have not been on the internet at all. This is probably, again, a middle child thing, that my parents were not looking after me. I was on the internet. However, I didn't say anything. Alhamdulillah, I will say, and look back at that when I was a 13, 14-year-old, I didn't say anything anti-Semitic. Everything that I ever did actually say was very anti-Israel. and anti-Israel government. And I think I will always stand by that. I will not take that away from what I was saying, especially during the time of that Gaza war that was taking place during those years. And that ended up being surfaced. That was sent in to my school. That was sent in to multiple different employers that I would potentially gone into. And it's one of the first things, some articles picked it up as well. I was genuinely being followed by other journalists in my classroom, as outside of the classroom, real journalists looking for me to talk about this, because my position as the president of OSP was also essentially the main issue. I think I was in the limelight for that. So they were kind of like, how can someone who has these anti-Semitic views be spearheading this organization? So when you looked up my name, and I think it will maybe still show up if you look up my name. I'm not encouraging anybody to do it, but those are the articles and the information that was showing up on the internet. And I think as a journalist, your main thing is your reputation. And because, again, people, my peers, literally my classmates, my professors, the chair of journalism was getting emails, like constant emails about me, where I am, where my whereabouts are, because journalists want to write it about this. It was a very traumatic the situation overall, because it got even worse to sort of the articles that they tried to write, because they tried to write about I've never been very specifically racially profiled like this, but because I'm Afghan and Pakistani and I'm Pashtun, they also tried to relate my ethnicity to specific terrorist groups in Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Oh my God, that's absolutely insane. So not only is it vigilante style policing, it's slander.
Absolutely.
Right?
It was
because you part of that walkout, it's a complete smear campaign. And the fact that it is actually effective is what's mind-blowing to me.
Well, it shouldn't have been. It definitely shouldn't have been. I think it was like the first couple of years of Canary Mission as well, I guess. And I think people just didn't know if it was like, it was very obvious that it wasn't a real, because in their profile, in their like mission statement, like anybody who's part of the MSA is being told that they're part of like a terrorist organization, which is absolutely Islamophobic and
insane.
inaccurate.
Yeah. And it actually had enough effectiveness to basically derail your journalism career.
Absolutely. Yeah, it did. And it wasn't so much the Canary Mission as much as it was that other news organizations picked it up. Mm-hmm. Other like students who were like the campus news picked it up. So it was just like, essentially, it just wasn't a good look. And when I started applying, I was asked by again, it was a suggestion, but it was still like a suggestion that I didn't appreciate. I still don't appreciate at the time. Looking back, I was in second year and the chair of journalism, recommending that I leave my program. As opposed to protecting me instead.
See, that's ridiculous.
I was just kind of like, when I look back at it, I was like, I was a kid. I should have been protected. I should have been like I was obviously not doing anything. It was very obvious that I wasn't doing anything with malicious intent. I had no sort of like, even what was being read and what was being posted from the tweets when I was 13 years old or 14 years old, it wasn't inaccurate information. It was just me having a debate online with someone about the situation. So I wish I was, as a kid, I was protected. Looking back, like I still do think I was like 20 years old, 19, 20 years old. So I was a child. However, looking back at it, I think if that didn't happen, I don't think MIFF would have happened. I don't think I would ever have gotten into film. And that was alhamdulillah for me. It ended up working out. But I think for anybody else, I mean, I was like 9 years old and I was dreaming of being a journalist. So it was a huge chunk of me giving up on my dreams. However, I think I was meant to be a filmmaker. I was meant to be able to start MIFF. So alhamdulillah, regardless. But I think looking back at it, I think it was not, and it's not, I'm looking back at this, knowing that this was like in 2016, 2017, is interesting because I see journalists dealing with this exact sort of discrimination now till this day, not just in classrooms, but in newsrooms. So it goes to show that this didn't start on October 7th. This has always been there. It did not start there. It has always been there. And that discrimination has been a huge, especially the situation between Palestine and Israel, has been a huge disconnect from the journalism world as opposed to the reality of it all.
Yeah, no, and I'm really impressed that you're able to have that positive outlook and you're able to look at that incident and say, okay, so much good came out of it. And it feels like one of those examples of Allah plans and they plan, and indeed Allah is the best of planners. And alhamdulillah, I feel like that's so cool that you're able to be there. I'm curious, we were just a moment ago talking about how students may need guidance as they're going through these difficult phases of their lives. You are a 20-year-old who is going through this smear campaign, and potentially your educational career is about to be derailed, and potentially career as well. Did you feel like you had any support, or how isolating was that in that moment?
So I think my situation was worse than I've like led it to believe, because I don't want to trauma them too. But I think for me it was lonely, because I was being attacked to the point that if anybody even commented on my Facebook post, they were getting DMs about me, asking where I am, if they could speak to me, they want to write an article about me. So I had genuinely like isolated myself, because I didn't want any of my friends, especially friends who were in journalism school, to be targeted or attacked this way. So for me, it was very isolating. Again, I couldn't tell my family either, because I didn't want them to give me another excuse to not be in journalism school. However, I did have like a good support system. I had friends who obviously believed in me and didn't know that I would never, ever like do anything like this, the way people are portraying it to be. I did get the opportunity from the Muslim, like I don't remember who it was, and this is unfortunate that I don't remember, but it was someone from the Muslim community. It was a law firm that had offered to help me out, and I was very grateful for that. Again, for me, again, as a kid, as someone who hadn't told my parents, I was like, there's no way I can go to court or anything about this without my parents finding out. So I decided to stay quiet.
You probably could have.
I could
You
have.
probably could have,
Very-
and you
very
probably
much
would
I
have
could have.
won with everything that's happened.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I could have. I was just like very terrified of the whole thing. And for me, I was like, it's better if like we just like stay quiet, and like that's the advice that I got from people as well in higher up positions at the university, which I didn't agree with. I was told never. So one of the reasons why things calmed down is, again, I'm grateful for my experience in journalism. Was it taught me how to kind of do my own PR. So I wrote a statement apologizing. I apologized for upsetting a community, but however, I still stood on what I was saying. I was like, this is the whole situation. This is why this has happened. And I just like gave them my piece. And because I was able to do that, I was told multiple times not to do that. Again, this is like looking back at it, alhamdulillah, for knowing how to do it. But all my friends were also like, just stay quiet, stay quiet, stay quiet. It'll go away. It's just like 15 seconds. It'll go away. But I just didn't feel right for me. Like personally, I was like, for me, I'm very much, even till this day, it's very important for me to be a safe space for everybody. No matter what. And I could see that was being compromised. So I wrote my statement, I published it. And actually, once I wrote that statement, Canary Mission ended up finding it, and they emailed me saying that because you wrote this statement and because you apologized, we'll take your profile down. And they did take my profile down.
Why, thank you very much.
I was like, sure. Yeah.
Too little too late. Thank you very much. Yeah.
No, there was no thank you. I didn't even care, but I was like, it came down. But I mean, it just goes to show that like, and multiple people actually on campus from the Jewish community also reached out to me, and they were like, they also reached out to their rabbis, and they reached out to their communities, like essentially advocating for me, saying that this was a smear campaign. This is not fair. She is not whatever she wrote seems so very sincere. It is not fair to what she did. And I think that was what was most important to me, not the fact that Canary Mission took things down. I think my peers who were in journalism school, who were Jewish, who understood that this is not me, and I wasn't trying to be anti-Semitic or anything like that. That was what was most important to me, and that's what came out of it.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So really, I think that's, again, I did that on my own. Unfortunately, I didn't speak to a PR company or anything like that. It was just something that was in me that was kept telling me like, I need to speak I need to say my piece.
Right. But you basically got away with doing it on your own because you had that journalism training. You had some concept of how to manage a media crisis, right? The vast majority of people that may go through a smear campaign like that would be myself, village idiots who have no idea how to manage any of that. And things would go badly. Yeah,
absolutely. I wouldn't recommend anybody else to do that either. And again, I've been into multiple like PR campaigns after this. Like, it's unfortunate. It comes with the territory when you're a Muslim woman in like the public space. advocating against Islamophobia. It just comes with the territory.
Exactly.
And I've been, and something I've learned from that, and being able to, like, I think for me, it's about the way you say things when it comes to PR, and it's about like very much being very transparent and honest with what you're saying. And I think that's the approach I took. I didn't take it as like, oh, how do I do this and for a media PR kind of thing. I genuinely just like I took it as me writing a statement in the sense that like, how can I again create a safe space for someone? And I can't do that without being honest and transparent. And if I did make a mistake, I should take accountability. And I did take accountability for what I think, but I also like recognized I was 13 years old. I was 14 years old. Like, I apologize for what I did as a kid, but I think we should also come to the point that I was a child. I was a child that shouldn't have been on the internet. I was genuinely on the internet to get a follow from the Jonas Brothers in One Direction. And I somehow got into, and I somehow got involved in the whole Israel-Gaza war. And the whole conversation of it all. However, even then, looking back at it, I also wanted to recognize that I did not, as a kid, even then, especially as a kid who had just come from Pakistan, I also recognized that too. And like, there are some sort of like, you know, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic statements that come from the territory there as well. And despite that, I was still very much firm on my beliefs as a Muslim, where I wasn't being anti-Semitic. I was just really recognizing the oppression that existed from a government, and a government is not a religious entity.
Exactly. You know, I think at the end of all of this, the most important question that I have is, eventually, at any point, did you get that follow from the Jonas Brothers?
No, but I did go to their concert last year. I went to their concert last year, so that was great.